3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to this new episode of Data Minds. This is a podcast series to get to know the people behind the data world that's going on in Belgium and in Netherlands today, because we're in Holland actually. I have with me none less than Tjark. He's the Director General of CBS. CBS is the Central Bureau of Statistics here in Holland. So I'm very honored that he's willing to make some time available here with me, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So maybe Tjark, to begin, can you introduce yourself to the audience, talk a bit about your background and your history?
Yeah, so I was born in Suriname in South America, and I lived there for 2 years, and then my parents immigrated to the Netherlands, and I've been here ever since. I have a PhD in theoretical physics, in elementary particle physics. Wow. And after that, I did a postdoc in Munich at the university there. And after that, I went into the private sector. I worked for Shell, the Shell laboratory in Amsterdam. And from there, I went to the financial sector and worked on complex derivatives in the financial sector. So that's complex financial instruments, and trying to model them and trying to see how they behave in different market circumstances and what the risks are and things like that. After that, I went to consulting.
Okay.
So Ernst & Young.
All right.
Yeah, corporate finance. And from there, I went into government. So I was the director of antitrust, so the competition authority in the Netherlands for 5 years, I think. And from there, I went to the forensics sector, which is we have in the Netherlands one big forensic laboratory that does most of the forensic investigations. For example, DNA, things like that, and also pathology and all kinds of chemical, physical kinds of stuff. And I did that also for, I think, 7 years. And now for 5 years, I am the Director General of Statistics Netherlands, as they call it sometimes, the Central Bureau of Statistics.
Yeah, all right. That's quite a track record there. And I guess in that journey, you've seen it all, like private sector, consulting, well, a lot of PhD and academic work, and then government.
Yeah.
So maybe let's zoom in on that, because I guess what would look to me as one of the bigger steps is to go from the private sector to government.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Well, actually, the government entity that I joined was one of my biggest customers at that time. So I was advising them, and at a certain point, this job opening came along, and I guess I was kind of finished with being a consultant. I wanted to do things for myself, and so this is why I joined this organization. And at the time, it was a very interesting time for that organization, because the Netherlands was known as the cartel paradise. So everybody was, making agreements with all the companies were making agreements with each other about price, about market sharing, things like that. And the government wanted to change that, and it was also EU legislation. So this organization had a big job to do.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And this is kind of something that attracts me a lot. So if there's a big job to do and it's difficult, then I kind of get warmed up.
Well,
and
awesome.
So this is why I went there, and we did an interesting job there to break the cartel culture in the Netherlands. And I think we did a very good job, and especially in the construction sector, but also in the financial sector and other sectors. And but after that, I have a physics background, so the technology side of it still was pulling me in. And the forensic laboratory in the Netherlands, NFI, National Forensic Laboratory, is it's really a technology company, like CBS actually. CBS is also a technology company, and so I became, as you will, if you will, a CEO of a technology company, and of course it was government, but still. So that was very attractive to me.
Right. And so now you're Director General of CBS, which also is a CEO role. It's not a small company at that, right?
No, it's about 2,000.
2,000 people work for CBS. And can you maybe dive into what that means? So if you run a company of 2,000 people, I guess most of them very smart academics, statistics people, technology people.
Yeah.
Can you walk us through what that means?
It means that, I mean, technology, highly educated personnel, technology company, you manage that in a different way than other companies. Highly educated people, you don't force them into things. You try to persuade, and you try to give a certain direction, and then they can become involved in that. And that is the way I've been trying to run CBS. It's trying to present a new vision for the organization and get us there. And sometimes, of course, this also means that you have to force it a little bit, because nothing difficult is done only by persuasion. It's also sometimes a little bit, pushing and pulling. But
you can't align 2,000 people on everything, right?
No, because 2,000 highly educated people also have 2,000 opinions. So if you want to have kind of like a coherence in the direction, sometimes you have to put your foot down. But it's not really that necessary I think most of the time here, as long as you have a clear vision of where you want to go. Yeah. And of course, this vision, this kind of builds over time. It's not something that is there right away. But I very, very early on, and maybe the first few months, I got a kind of like a idea of where I wanted to go with CBS. Yeah. What I wanted the company or the organization, I must say, to feel like, and what it should be. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you maybe explain that on a very high level for our viewers? What's the vision? When you came in here 5 years ago, what did you think that the organization needed the most?
I think what it needed was a kind of like a new vision for the future. So because of the world around us has changed a lot. Mm-hmm. And so the new vision for the future was that the world is becoming more data driven. Mm-hmm. And everybody's talking about this, and how do you use data to have better decisions. And this is certainly also true for the government. Yeah. It's not only in the private sector. And this is where CBS has a particular role to play. That's one thing. So the government, it relies on us to provide high quality, detailed information about society, so that decisions can be better motivated. Mm-hmm. And also that you can track and monitor how things are going after you've made the decisions, right? Yeah.
Because I guess that's the weird part. You said, well, the world's becoming more and more data driven, but CBS, like, that's almost the definition of being data driven, right?
Yeah.
You've always done that, not just riding the current hype, but they've been doing that for decades.
I think that is most of the point I'm trying to make, is that we have, we've been around for more than a century already. So we're kind of like the big data organization before there was such a thing as big data, and before people thought about it in that way. Absolutely. But then we kind of got in a certain groove of doing our work, and then the whole society around us changed. Yeah. Whereas in the past, data was kind of centralized. You needed all kinds of centralized structures to bring all the different data sets together at a certain point, so that you can analyze them. But what has happened with the internet and with the way society has been moving is that information and data has been kind of democratized. It has been decentralized.
Yes, very much.
So this decentralization of data and of information, that's crucial. Yeah. So the next thing then becomes the question, so what is then the role of CBS in that? And that's one thing. Second thing is, if you look at the statistics we make or the data we provide, what's the value of it, really? What is really is the data itself valuable? Well, not really. It's what you do with it. If it's useful, then it's valuable. If it's not useful, then it's not. Yeah. And data and statistics are only valuable if they can answer certain questions. It's the answer to the questions that people are interested in. Nobody's interested in data by itself. You use the data to answer questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so there's two things that you can say then, is that first of all, if you want to answer a question, you need to find all the data that you need to answer the question. Mm-hmm. Whereas in the past, the statistics offices have been kind of in this other model in which they said, well, listen, we will agree to a certain set of statistics that we will make together, and then we produce them, and then we throw them into society, and we hope society will do something with them.
So you mean in the past, the CBS used to work like, we have all this data, what are some of the interesting conclusions we can draw?
Well, it was the other way around. We kind of said, let's, for example, say, we want to know something about the labor market. Then we all agree amongst ourselves about, for example, a definition of the term unemployment, because you have to calculate something. You have to make it very precise. So we agree upon a certain definition of unemployment, and then we just create this unemployment figure every month or every quarter, and then we push it into society, and then we hope that society can do something with that.
Yeah, I see.
So that's a different attitude, because if you're a policymaker, you might have a totally different way of thinking. You might have, all right, so, but what are the main issues in the economy that makes people go unemployed, or maybe they have what type of demographic groups are unemployed, and what's the cause of that?
So you see people and government agencies asking way deeper questions, more granular questions, where you need a lot more analysis than just the raw numbers. Right?
Exactly. So this is the point. They want to know an answer to a question, and the statistics that we traditionally deliver cannot do that. It's too general. And also it's most of the time oftentimes it's one indicator for a very complex phenomenon, like GDP. So GDP has risen.
That's one number.
It's just one number for a very complex phenomenon. So I always compare to, please characterize a human being for me, and then somebody says, well, the person weighs 85 kilos.
Yeah.
And then you've characterized the whole organism. But the person's entire life, his health, everything is just. Or you go to a doctor, and the only thing a doctor has is a scale.
Yeah.
So whatever your ailment, you just go and he puts you on the scale, and that's it.
Well, and on a very, very rough figure, it makes sense, because if the doctor sees that you're losing weight, there's probably something wrong.
Yes.
But medicine is so much more refined.
You need a very detailed diagnosis.
Absolutely.
Somebody can lose weight because of 1,000 reasons.
Yeah, indeed.
And the doctor needs to know exactly which one of these reasons is true. Yeah. It's the same with the economy. If unemployment rises, it can have 1,000 different reasons. So the reason that is true, that's the one we were trying to find, because then a policymaker can make policy.
Yeah.
So, and this is where big data comes in. Yeah. And this is where our other data developments come. Because if you have our traditional approach to our field, which is doing surveys, for example, we surveyed 10,000 people in the Netherlands. That will never give you the granularity that you need for this type of question.
No.
But since the first step for us was to get the administrative data. So all the administrative data in the Netherlands, for example, the tax data, we get it on an individual level. So this means that we have a huge data set, very high information content.
Sensitive, right?
And sensitive, and we have it of all important government agencies. Wow. So we can couple the data. So this gives you much more granularity. Now you can zoom in and zoom out, and you make different cross sections of the data, and you can really try to find out what's really going on. And with big data, the advantage, because the difference between administrative data and what we call, in our definition, big data, for me, big data is sensor data.
Okay.
Whereas administrative data is highly granular, but still, it's somebody at some point down the line has had to type it into a computer.
Yeah. So right? It's in the sense, it's very, well, in business terms, very operational data, like this transaction happened or this sales.
Yes, but exactly. But somebody, for example, has to fill in its tax, the tax, and then we get the tax automated, the tax returns in an automated fashion. But somebody at the front end had to type it in.
Absolutely.
Now, so what is now the difference with big data? And that's kind of like the automation of the process by which you capture the data.
Yeah.
It's no longer a person who is typing it in; it's a sensor who is sensing it.
Absolutely.
And that gives you even more granularity, and it gives you also more speed, because that is also a kind of like a criticism of statistics authorities, is that yes, it's very interesting what they have, but it's always a year old.
Yeah, and that's also what you see when you enter this, by the way, beautiful building. You guys on the show only see a very thin slice of it, but it's a very nice building. And when you enter, you see immediately Center for Big Data Statistics somewhere in the corner. So that's a center that you created, and that's exactly to more offer solutions for this need that you were just describing.
Exactly, because turning big data, sensor data, into very reliable, high-quality statistics is not an easy thing.
No. That's also where technology has a much bigger role, right?
Yeah, so in the past, when we went from mostly surveys to using surveys, but mostly administrative data, we have had this transition as well. What is the transition? The transition is that the survey was specifically constructed for the purpose that we had for it.
Yeah.
So we had a purpose, we construct the survey, and then we get the data. Whereas the administrative data is really somebody else's data, and we kind of gracefully use it, but we really have to translate that data into data and into statistics that we can use. And often there's problems there because there are definition problems, timing problems, all kinds of problems. And we had to create a whole new research and development type of methodology type of department to create the tools to be able to do that. Because this is even more so with sensor data.
Yeah, because it's massive, right? And indeed, so as I understand it, when you do survey data, you own the chain end to end from the beginning to the end. You control the exact definitions. But when you start integrating data from different government departments and sensor data, you need a different approach, right?
So then you need to you have to do a lot of research and development to create this thing. And so this is why we created the Center for Big Data Statistics.
Awesome.
It's more or less a research and development entity to help create the methodologies and the technologies to be able to do what we need to do.
And can you share some of the success stories there that you've done in the last couple of years?
Well, there are many. They're on our website. One of the things we created was a experimental website, which is completely new for our whole field.
Of course.
And because our field always prides itself on only delivering high quality statistics, but if you do that, then you don't innovate enough, because innovation is failing, right? You have to fail a lot, and you have to fail forward.
I like that expression.
So this is what we try to do. We create a experimental site, and you can look it up, and it has a lot of different statistics that we created using new experimental methodologies, and then we invite technologists to help us and to talk to us about that stuff, and to help us develop. So we did internet economy types of things. We did solar paneling. We did all kinds of road sensor work.
I've seen a talk on that. Well, it was in Barcelona in a conference. There was someone from CBS talking about how they analyzed road traffic data, and I was thinking, like, we need the same in Belgium.
No, so these are the things that we are working, but it's a lot more, and it's all on the website. And so we needed to create a kind of like an incubator, as they call it sometimes. So kind of like a group of wild people that are going to think in a different way and maybe try things.
All right.
And see where it ends.
Cool.
And this has been working very well.
Cool. And then maybe to build on that, so we've been talking about CBS internally, what you do, how you work. I guess you also do a lot of collaboration with private companies. Can you walk us through a bit about how you see ideal collaborations there, or what's your vision there?
Yeah. So the way we can cooperate with the private sector is there are numerous ways. One of the ways is that we collaborate in innovation. We will only be interested now and in the future in, as far as I'm concerned, in official government statistics. So, but the whole private sector of statistics and data services is completely free and open to them. So if we if we kind of create these new tools, new products and services, new technologies together, we can use it in our work, and they can use it to provide services to their customers. Yeah. Another thing is that what we can do is that even when we are doing our core business, which is providing official government statistics to society in an open way. Yeah. Even then, there's technology that comes in that we sometimes will create and sometimes we may buy. Yeah. So we always have this make or buy decision type of thing going on, and
like every big organization.
Like every big organization.
Everything yourself.
Exactly. So we whenever we want to create a new technology, we always think, okay, are we going to do it ourselves? Are we going to do it in collaboration with the triple helix, for example, with a private sector and maybe a university, or maybe only with the university, but with partners, and that's also possible. Will we maybe just buy it from a private company, and that's also certainly possible. Okay. And we are in the process of kind of working through what that would mean for us as an organization, because there are specific requirements that we have about technology that are a little bit different than the private sector. Because, for example, if you create official statistics which are used by the government, democratically elected and controlled government, that uses those statistics to make government policy, then
it's all huge impact.
Exactly. Right? Then all the algorithms and everything, all the steps have to be transparent.
Yeah, you can't just like this black box machine learning model told me to close this.
Exactly, or maybe secret algorithms.
Yeah. So it has to be transparent.
It has to be transparent. So how do we work with that? Well, in my opinion, this is something that we have to think about, and but it's soluble. Why is it solvable? Because it's already been solved somewhere else.
Okay, where is it?
The defense.
Okay.
Defense of the country is clearly a government and is clearly government business. Yeah. But if you look at all the technology that is used by defense departments, it's mostly from the private sector. So we buy the guns, we buy the planes, we buy, and they're made by private companies. So what we need, in my opinion, in the Netherlands and elsewhere, is a kind of like, as you have in defense, you have a military industrial complex that surrounds the military.
Yeah, indeed.
And we need a data industrial complex.
I like that view.
So this is why we started to talk with a lot of companies at the end of last year to create what we call a data ecosystem. Yeah. Which consists of CBS, but of companies, lots of companies, and also universities that work together with us to create these new technologies of the future. And what we can do for them is, first of all, we can provide our knowledge. We can, once a product has been created, we can use it in the Netherlands, but also a technology that we have created can be sold by these companies worldwide, because we have a very strong network in our field.
So it's a win-win, right? You build it together, you benefit, the companies benefit.
Exactly. So what this then requires is that we build together a ecosystem that is kind of like an engine of innovation, which we do together, or maybe they do on their own, but then they bring it to the table, and then we together go outside and go across the border and bring it to the rest of the world.
Super cool.
So then we really become an engine of data innovation, so to speak.
Wow. No, I like it very much. Well, of course, I'm biased because I'm one of those potential private companies, of course. But I do like the fact that what I like about it is that you focus on your core business, what you're really good at, and you try to collaborate as much as possible with other companies. Well, we're like 100 times smaller than you are, but we have the same philosophy, right? We focus on our core business, and if we can collaborate with other people, then that's nice. Maybe, related to that, I guess, in Belgium at least, there is a big trend going on for government agencies to open up their data as much as possible. Obviously, you can't open up all the tax returns, but there's a big drive for open data, open data platforms. What is your view on that? Is it happening here in Holland? And
Yeah.
are you supporting
It is happening, and all the CBS data that we can make open is open.
Wow, cool. Yeah,
Everything.
yeah. So you have some kind of open data platform. You can go there.
We have an
download it.
API, and you can
Even through an API.
Yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's nice. Yeah.
And the use that is being made of the API is now exponentially growing.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
No, because I see it from the other side of the spectrum. Of course, when you talk to private companies, very often their most valuable data or their most valuable insight comes from combining different data sets. Right? They have their own internal data, they have government data, and they can build insights.
Combining
from that.
data is really the holy grail.
Yeah.
And that is one of the things that I think CBDS, Center for Big Data Statistics, is working on a lot, to combine data sets, not just use one data set, but combining them and to create information. Yeah.
Yeah, super cool. All right, cool. So maybe, well, as we said in the beginning, or as you explained, you've had quite a long track record. You have quite a big career already. If you look back, it could be here in CBS or one of your roles before that. What are some of the main lessons learned that you said, if I knew that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, I would have done things differently?
I've not been working for CBS for longer than 5 years, so I cannot talk about CBS on a time frame of 10 years. But one of the things that I have learned is that once you look at societal change, and in this case it's societal change based on the data revolution, in the beginning it always goes very much slower than you think it will go. So there's a new technology coming along. Can be anything. Can be, for example, the moment that the personal computers came along, or the computers and mainframes, whatever. At that time, everybody thought everything will change overnight. So now you can do all your bookkeeping in the computer. You can abolish whole departments within organizations, and you can have zero mistakes because the computer doesn't make mistakes. And what happened is that it took quite a long time.
Yeah, well, it's still going on.
It's still going on.
Now they call it digital transformation, but it's still getting things digitized, right?
Yeah. So why is that? It is because there's a legacy structure in society. So you have people that have been trained to do certain work. You have organizations that have a certain structure, and you cannot just simply abolish that. No. You cannot change overnight the whole process within an organization. It will take generations, because oftentimes it's only when the people that were there that will go, when they stop working and when they're 65 or something, when they retire, that you can really start to change things. So the new generation comes along. Well, we are now in the same juncture.
Okay.
What I've noticed is when we started kind of trying to provide these additional information products to the government, and to try to influence the way they had the process of decision making is structured, and using the data. And what we noticed was that it's not so easy. Yeah. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
It happened with me during my time at the NFI, the forensic laboratory. It's happening right now with the data revolution. So at the forensic laboratory, it was the same thing. So you had traditional police work, right? So trying to find the perpetrator. And that's traditional. We've been doing that for centuries.
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
Policemen are trained in a certain way. They're very skilled at that. But now it comes along a whole new technology. And it can, with only 50 cells left by the perpetrator at the crime scene, you can identify who this person was.
Which is crazy, right?
Which is crazy. It's amazing. And so this is the same for all the forensic technologies. So what forensics does really is it's automating the detective work in a sense. And so if you would completely start anew and you don't have a legacy, you would build a very big forensic capability within the country, within the laboratory, within the police. Everything should be geared towards this forensic evidence, because it's much stronger often than other types of evidence.
Than more traditional.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So you would create a whole structure that is geared towards this type of evidence, and then you would put around that, you would put the other things.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
because it's the other way around historically,
Yeah.
you see that this forensic work is really still, even today, it's still more like something that we also do.
Yeah, indeed, and you can't do this big bang change where you say, you know what, we're gonna dismember or break down the entire organization and build it from scratch, because I mean you always need police work, right? You can't just press the pause button for 6 months. And
No,
you need.
you cannot simply go and fire everybody and because you have to gradually get into it, right?
Yeah. And that's something you didn't expect, or that was a learning for you?
It was for me a learning experience, because once you come from technology or science, you say, well, we have something new and it is perfect, it's great, it's a new invention, why not use it? And then you run into reality, and reality says yes, but things are not so easy. We have legacy, we have things that need to change, and change is very difficult.
Yeah.
And it's the same with data-driven work.
Absolutely.
We all understand the theoretics of it. I mean, if you have more information, you can make better decisions. It's almost like a thing, right? But how now? If you have all these processes that lead from the government people to the politicians, and that lead to decisions made by the government, which is a process that has been there for centuries.
Yeah, and doing change management there is
how do you incorporate this technology, this data-driven way of thinking and organizing the processes? How do you incorporate it there? It's very, very complicated, and nobody has solved it yet.
Yeah. Well, no, I guess what I see, but on a much smaller scale than your experience, of course. But what I see is like corporate change just takes time.
It does take time.
You don't get corporate change by making slides or by doing demos. No, you get it by delivering results that has a positive impact, and then slowly but surely the wheel starts turning and spinning. But it's a step by step. There's this analogy, like we don't need one silver bullet. We need a lot of lead bullets, right? You need a lot of
small steps,
success stories, and then all of a sudden you wake up in a world like, hey, the mind shift has changed.
And you need first movers. Yeah, very important.
Big thing,
often they are small.
Yeah,
small entities that have the agility to move quickly and do something new.
Yes.
You need a lot of courage as well. Really, especially in the government.
You step out of your comfort zone, right?
Yeah, I mean. Experimenting and failing it's controversial in the private sector, but it's totally controversial in the government.
Yeah.
I mean, failing it's almost something that's forbidden. Yeah. I mean, nobody is allowed to.
I know what you mean.
It's very difficult to have a story like, yes, but we tried something new. All right, it failed, but. No,
and if you don't allow that, then you can't have this learning culture or learning attitude.
You can only learn by failing. Yeah, really.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, not only, but it's probably
it's
the
part of it.
It's probably the most impactful learning experience. You can also learn by doing something which works, of course, but most of the time, of all the ideas that are feasible. Or maybe that you can think of, most of them are wrong, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you want to really try something and find this good idea, you have to try a lot of things that are maybe not such a good idea.
Yeah. And you iterate towards a good idea.
It's an evolutionary process.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like pruning all the bad stuff. Whereas the way people tend to think is that it's like it's a linear process. You just go from this to that to that to that and that, and then it's over.
You plan, design, execute, deliver.
That's not really the way it works in real life.
No, absolutely not. All right, cool. Maybe one last question I always ask the people on the podcast is, I know it's very sensitive for you, I guess, but can you in some way predict the future? I know you can't predict what the GDP will be 5 years from now, but how do you see the data world in general, and maybe data applied to government? How do you see that ecosystem evolving like 5 or 10 years from now?
Yeah, so I think it will evolve the way I was discussing earlier. So I think in the future there will be a very, very vibrant ecosystem of high technology companies that are working with data and developing tools, maybe developing products for private sector and the government, and working together with us to when it comes to official government statistics, we are fully ready to kind of facilitate this process and help it along with our huge data sets and our abilities. So in the future, I think this trend towards more data-driven decision making, it will happen. Yeah. It will be very slow. It will be very painful, but it will happen because it's such a logical thing to happen.
Yeah, it's unstoppable. Right?
Yeah. People say sometimes that we live in an age where people don't believe facts anymore. I think and there is some truth to that on a certain level. But on the other hand, if you look at the way CBS's statistics are used, it's more than ever, far more than ever. So really, it's not that bad. Yeah. People are really moving towards this more data-driven world. So I think that will continue, and I think there will be a very interesting ecosystem. Well, the Netherlands is specifically able to, or is in a position to create this ecosystem, which can be world class, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I hope that it will happen.
All right. Cool. Well, Tjark, thank you very much for the interview. It was a really pleasure talking to you, and good luck with your role as Director General of CBS.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.